Hello, hello.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this stream. We have good folks from Allegro with us, Bartosz and Radik, and they're
Hello.
going to
Hello.
present how they handle Gradle at scale and discuss also their usage of GitHub Actions. Folks, the stage is yours.
Thanks. So I start the presentation. Could you put it on screen?
Yeah, sure. So we are doing quite a lot of last-minute changes, etc. So thanks to everyone for your patience. By the way, whether you watch the video on YouTube or LinkedIn, there is Q&A. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions. We will be asking them. And thanks a lot to Louis for hosting the session today. My voice is really bad at the moment, so I will hope that the team takes care of it. Thanks all. And yeah, Bartosz, please continue.
Okay. So hello again. Today we are wanted to share with all of you our story from Allegro. We use Gradle at scale, and we started using GitHub Gradle Actions. And first, the most important question is, why not Maven? You know, it's like declarative and it's simple, easy to learn. It's XML, so it should be easy to analyze. And yeah, I know, like I just remembered that it doesn't support incremental builds, and we want to have build caching enabled. We want parallel execution and ID support. Plugins there are, but we want a rich plugin system, and we need a lot of flexibility. So we decided to go with Gradle back in 2013, and we never looked back. And that's how our story started. So now, just a few facts from our side. We host about 1,200 GitHub repositories, and at least one quarter of them declare that they're using Gradle. We have few, I think it's 4 or 5 Gradle plugins created through the years, and we have our own internal Maven repository, of course. We have whole span of Gradle versions out there, and we actually use Gradle wrapper everywhere. And we are hosting our own Gradle build cache server. And I just got this data yesterday, so we have about 10,000 Gradle builds daily going on. So with this scale, we have some challenges. So like the main thing we need to know what dependencies Allegro is using. We need to be aware of the security issues that can possibly be there. And we want to make sure that Allegro as a company is license compliant, so we don't break any rules there. Just to have a few examples, I'm sure that some of you already lived the drama from the last week with Polyfill.io security issue, or maybe remember Log4Shell vulnerability when it striked. In those situations, we cannot waste any time. We know something happens, and we need to know exactly what parts of the Allegro can be or are affected. So this is the main problem for us. And the problem that we have with Gradle, or maybe with our builds, not the Gradle itself, with Maven, it's really easy to collect and all the dependencies because they are in the XML file. And a lot of specialized tools like Stackshare.io or Fossa or even GitHub can simply parse those files and give some insights. So in Gradle, the story is a bit different. Dependency graph is calculated during build, so it's a bit harder to analyze it. So that's why me, Bartosz, and Radek, my friend here, he will be showing you some demos. Few slides next few slides. We tried to fix this and try to make it work. So first of all, we started doing some bit of a research and asked ourselves, read some blog posts, how those other companies do it and work with it. So for example, our friends at Netflix use Nebula plugins, suits, like a lot of plugins. So basically, they are building and incorporating their logics and some behaviors enforcements into plugins they distribute inside their company. We know by fact that some companies maintain their own Gradle distributions. That should also work probably because then you can include some init scripts there. All the other ones try hard to parse and analyze Gradle builds or, I don't know, company runtimes, just like mentioned earlier, Fossa and Stackshare does, because it's like basically faster than try to rely on build itself, because some builds can take a lot of time. And of course, there are some problems. There can always be some problems and edge cases with like static analyzing of Gradle builds. So even GitHub provides some features because like security issues like big concern for GitHub, and they try to create a software bill of material file. It's an XML that consists of all the dependencies the repository is using, and they also try to detect it with easier, like with some package managers and dependencies softwares. It's easy, like in npm, for example. There's a package log file consisting of all dependencies, or in Python world, there's requirements.txt file, and it has everything there. So that GitHub has like an easy job to do there. As I said before, with Gradle it's a little bit other story. And GitHub uses it for create Dependabot automated pull requests and security reports. So just having those features is really useful for the developers, because I don't need to track what's happening in the security matter. GitHub just creates Dependabot pull request with security fix. So the main question that we asked ourselves is how to analyze the Gradle application dependencies reliably and easily. I don't see the backstage, so if there's any questions, just please shout to me, and I will try to answer. So we pointed this question, and we started to again back to the drawing board and done some research. And in the meantime, Gradle team published the official actions, GitHub Actions actions. One of them is the setup-gradle action. This is the main one. And if you read the README carefully, you will know that this action actually allows the user to submit a dependency file, the mention and software bill of materials, into the GitHub API automatically. So this is the thing that we wanted. I want to add it, and I want these dependencies to be shown in GitHub UI. But when reading the README, we found out some things that was not perfectly suited for Allegro use cases, or maybe we thought so. I don't know yet. So, for example, the documentation states that we need to simply add a new workflow file to repositories. It can be a good idea, but it can be hard to create a new workflow in multiple repositories, and some builds can be really hard to create and to maintain. So maybe not for us. When we looked at the docs even deeper, we found out that also we need special permission. We need to have a special trigger to trigger the action. So GitHub, a bit shame on you, because you cannot declare, or at least I don't know how to declare a workflow that will run only on a default branch without hard coding the name, of course. So that was also a thing for us, because with so many repositories, we don't really know what's the default name there. And the last part about the permissions, because that was also something new for us, because workflow needs to upload the file. It needs permission to write the content to the repository. So again, we started asking ourselves, okay, do we need to add those permissions like in the workflows to all the people repositories? So we started to think about our requirements. So what do we need to happen? What do we want to happen from the Gradle side? So we didn't really want to enforce any reusable or universal build pipeline. we can think about the distribution I mentioned earlier, or some kind of, I don't know, like reusable GitHub workflow that we will enforce to each build. But in such a big company, like there are so many applications and so many use cases, newer ones, older ones, and it's really hard to create a simple and understandable universal solution. So we don't want to introduce that, and we really hope for a great deal of customization, and we want to be flexible, just because the same arguments, like a lot of repositories can differ in some ways. And because me and Radek, we work on our day-to-day job, we work in developer experience area, so this is our priority. Yeah, we don't want to make we don't want to give everybody a lot of work just because we want to set up something. So next question come to our mind: why not simply enable dependency submission globally in setup-gradle action? And how could we achieve that? So we thought about it a bit, and we discussed multiple scenarios. So even if following the Gradle recommended documentation, we would need to create a company-wide migration, creating new workflows. So if we need to do it, maybe we can wrap it in our own action, maybe. And we went there. So we wanted to create our own, but there's still a permission issue, because if we can introduce our action, we also need to update the permissions. But our GitHub organization admins said that we don't need it, and we were curious why. And it happens that our organization already gives all the workflow contents right permissions, so we don't really need to do it. So great, we went deeper and we created our own Allegro action called setup-gradle, and we tried really hard to explain people why do we need a wrapper and why we are not using the official action. And the main difference is that, I will show you in a second, we changed few lines. It was really fairly easy to do, so I encourage everybody to if you like our idea, you can do it yourself. It took 27 lines, just passing, wrapping the original action. And if you can see, we only changed one property that we basically said you cannot change, because our action is hard coding it, and you don't need to read the spell, like this is some GitHub ifs. But basically what it does, it enables dependency graph submission to every repository, to every build, in every workflow, only if it's a main branch. So that's why we override this property. Every other ones are just copied. So anybody who wants to read the Gradle official action docs can use any property they want. So now the hard part. So basically this thing is the most hard for me. So a migration throughout the company. So Allegro uses source graph tooling, so it was easy to start. We created a batch change, and we used Open Rewrite for it. So it was fairly simple. It just added our action, or migrated anything else that we could find. We created some pull requests. And as I said, we just replaced the old action or added a new one. Seems simple. It was 1,500 change sets. So not so bad, but it could be better. The worst part was to merge those changes. We started the painful process of notifying people, and we were giving them stats and emails and Slack notifications, and even more and more and more and more and more. And after a few months, we actually did it. We are now 85 or 90% of the repositories. So it's really good level of adoption. And the second we achieved this level, we started looking at GitHub repositories. And yeah, finally, if you go to Insights, you can now see the dependency graph tab, and then you can see all the dependencies. And it's worth mentioning that almost no applications at Allegro use Spring directly. This is a screenshot from application that uses our internal Spring Boot starter that includes Spring. So that proved us that, okay, I can now see transitive dependencies here. So I'm really sure that this is all the code this repository uses. And you can ask now, did we achieve global Gradle settings? Like maybe now when we have our own Gradle setup action, we can do something more. And yeah, I think that in our minds, that was the grand plan all along. So we added, after setting Gradle, we also added our own init script. So we had now full control of the builds, and we can start to improve our solution even more. So that's the main question: why on earth would anybody need a global Gradle script there? Like so many apps. But like we had some ideas. For example, each Gradle repository needed to set a Maven target to configure the Maven repositories, or for example, set up the artifact publication to to have the results of the build published into our internal Maven. About the plugins that were made throughout the years, some of them are really useful and we need them during the build time. So why not now enforce them? For example, pin the version in our Gradle setup config. And of course, we can be transparent about what we are doing, and we can add additional build logs saying, like telling people what we have configured for them and what is different, like in matters of the regular Gradle build. And now I would like Radek to come to the laptop, and he will show you some live coding demos.
Okay, thank you, Bartosz. Yeah, so basically, let me start about comparing the old with the new. The old world. Like probably in many other companies, Allegro for many years had their own Gradle plugin, which was used in pretty much every build, and it configured stuff. What it configured, the things which Bartosz talked about. So basically, it looked like this. It's named Action, by the way. So you can see the configuration of this plugin here, the Action Publishing, repositories, create. So this it's very simplified configuration. It's only the core part, the thing which it must be done by the plugin. So it configures the publishing repository. In our case, it's Artifactory instance. That's not a very pretty configuration, I would say, but it worked for many years. And then we also have to declare the publications of the module we want to publish, because the module can be a library, it can be an application, it can be a Gradle plugin. That's why we need to declare those things here. Yeah, and it worked, but there are a couple of problems with that. First of all, it's like a copy-pastable configuration, and it already proved in our company that really few people really understand it. So it was like copy-pasting it everywhere. It was in service templates, so it's, as I said, everywhere, and it's like was a magic for the people. Also, with this approach, when you want to change something, for example, we want to change the way we are publishing and deploying artifacts to our infrastructure. When we do this change in Action plugin, it requires adoption throughout the entire organization, because basically every build needs to bump a plugin version. So it's also, as we saw on the setup-gradle migration, it can take a lot of time to finish such a migration. And also, what I don't like about this approach is it's very Allegro specific. it's like you cannot take this first tutorial how to build a application with Gradle, use it, and expect it to be published and deployed on Allegro infrastructure. You really need to apply the special plugin, apply the special configuration, which really does only basic stuff for you. But besides of that, you also have to partially configure it by the plugin, partially by the native API, which is publications. And this is better, but it still needs to be copy pasted everywhere, because every application we deploy needs those two artifacts. It needs this distribution zip and provisioning package. So I would like to have like a middle ground between those two. So people don't have to copy all those stuff, like the configurations. And also our builds are not Allegro specific, and you can just expect standard application to be deployable in our infrastructure. So what we did is like since we already have the setup-gradle in pretty much every repository in Allegro, we thought that maybe it's a good idea to good place to put this logic there and in our init script. Yeah, so I will show you in a minute how it's implemented, how it looks like, and basically what it will do. Those are logs generated by our init plugin. It will basically rely only on the native Gradle API, so the plugins like application plugin, Java library plugin, Maven publish plugin, and it will try to infer something what we call software type. So basically, whether this module is application which we should deploy, whether this module is a library, it's a Gradle plugin. It's everything. What it needs to do is what plugins it has. So if it has Java library plugin, it seems that it's a library. So we should create a publication for a library, and that's what it do. Also, what can be interesting for you is this zip structure, because it has like two entries, not only one. It's not very common case in Allegro, but we have a concept of series variants. So in one distribution zip, you can have multiple variants of the same series, which are deployed together. And we use that for a couple of cases, like for example, when Allegro was launching on Czech Republic, many teams created a dedicated variant of their service for Czech marketplace. But that's the only one case, and there are more. So it's couple handy for us, and we wanted it to work with our new solution. Okay, so now for the demo time, I would like to show you. Okay, let me.
Maybe before we proceed to the demo, a call for questions. Can just put any comments? There are no major questions at the moment, so I think that demo is something we need for sure. But any additional feedback, etc., is always welcome. So just put it in the chat. For example, you use Gradle in a similar way, you agree, sure. If you disagree, this is exactly what we want, because we want to have more discussion.
Yeah, we really need some like discussions, like you said. Like we want somebody to say, okay, this is wrong.
Okay, so I assume we can proceed with the demo, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will try to live code a little. If it doesn't work, I will like go to the final solution, but I hope it will work. So let's just create a just a new project from IntelliJ template. Let's name it, for example, demo service. Okay, and create it. And we will try to start with that and deploy it on our infrastructure. Okay, so a couple of changes needed for this. Let's clean this all up. Let's get rid of that. Let's wrap it into all projects. Let's let this my MacBook to process that until I have the IDE support. Okay. Let's also add the dependency resolution management here. Let's put the repositories. We want a Maven repository. For Allegro, we want Maven Central, and that's it. And I will be creating a couple of modules to be deployed or published. So basically, I'll start with demo service 1, demo service 2, demo service client. So it will be library published to other services to easier integrate with our service. And also I would like to have like demo service local tool. It's just a helper for us. We want to only run it locally and not be deployed on the infrastructure. Okay, so let me now add the Gradle ATS files everywhere. And let me include those modules. Client and the local tool. Let it all sync. Okay, we have it. So let's start by configured app 1. It will be application. We want it to be published, and it will use Kotlin version 2.0.0. And also we copy paste it to the second app. For the client, we will have Java library and also Maven publish. Because we want to publish it. And for the local tool, we will only apply application. Okay, let it sync one more time. Okay, so let's build some basic Spring application to make it deployable. I will include our internal library, which is Spring Starter. Okay, and I will also put it here. Let it sync, and I will create this like very simple application right now. Let's create a package like Allegro shop. Okay, let's have the app, which is just a standard Spring Boot application. Let's name it app1. And let's have the same thing for the second app, like for the second variant of the application, I would say. And let's just rename it to app2. And now we need to configure it to be the main class of the application. So let's do it. And the same for the second one. Only rename it to app2. Okay, that's it. We have two application variants. We have a library and we have a local tool. Let's not add any code there. It's enough to have those plugins. And now another thing, which we need to make it deployable in Allegro, we need something like Tycho file. If you know like Fly.io or other such tools, there is a file like fly.tom. So this Tycho YAML is a little bit similar because you just define how your application will be deployed, what will be the resources for the machine, and so on. So we just need to have that. Let's write it. Where are my documentation for that. Okay, IntelliJ doesn't like me. So let me quickly fix that. Okay, I will need to copy this file from the other service. We'll come back to that in a minute. Let's go with GitHub workflows, and we will create a workflow to deploy to build this application. I hope it will work now. Okay, so let's name it CI. Let it on push, and we would have like build job. It will first of all it will check out our repo. After that, it will set up Java with JDK21. After that, we will use setup-gradle, our own wrapper of the action. After that, we will just build and we will just publish. So we publish. Okay, and that's basically enough to make it published to our Artifactory and make it deployable in our developer portal. But since I cannot show you the developer portal, I'm going to configure build directly in the CI. So I'm gonna use deploy dev, and I will put a version here, for example 1.1.2 snapshot, because 1.1.5 is already there, so I will go with this one, and I need to configure it here. Okay, just for simplicity, I'm hard coding the version here. In normal workflows, we have our plugins for that, like a plugin which just outputs this version from the previous job and make it available to the next job. But for simplicity, I'm just hard coding it here. Okay, so for the Tycho file, I'm going to open.
While you search for that content, quick question: do you think you'll be able to share some of what you show as a public repo afterwards? Is there value in that?
I think it's possible. We talk about. I think it's possible. Okay, let me quickly find the content of this file. Okay.
When IntelliJ Live templates do not support you.
Yeah.
They're amazing, by the way. If you don't know them, look them up and use them.
Yeah, I love them, but for some reason they didn't work. Okay, so that's how this file looks like. So we define the name of the service, the group, which is like the place within our service tree to find it, and we have two deployed targets. The first one, both are on Kubernetes, and the important stuff is the command. So what will be what our infrastructure will do? It will take the distribution zip. We will publish to Artifactory. It will unzip it, and then you need to specify a command which will run your application. So basically, you will have the directory which is named demo service app1, because it's this demo service app1. You need to go into the bin folder and start the script. So it's like the variant which is called demo service app1, and we also have similar thing for demo service app2. It will just allow us to deploy those two variants in our infrastructure. Okay, I think that's basically it. We can now try to actually deploy it. Okay, let me copy that. Okay, we found this, and let's Final remote. I already have the repository prepared, and I also like set up the service in our developer portal, which I cannot show you, but it's there. It's ready to be deployed. I only have to write the code. Okay, so I hope now it will start the build.
Yeah.
Give it a
This
while.
time of the year when GitHub Actions is actually stable.
Yeah, exactly.
And so maybe while the build is running, so like because the init script will inject a number of services to do all of that deployment, how does it work for the local developer? Like, do they sometimes run stuff locally, and then how do they get to that?
Yeah, I get it. So basically, we really wanted to just not distribute it as a plugin, but it's perfectly possible to have all of that locally. You only need to. I think I have this command already. Okay, so basically, what I will just advise to users is to just curl for the content of the init script. It applies our plugin, the latest version of it, to our local. Let's say it's .gradle init gradle kts, and now we should also see it here. What's that?
Yeah, the token was expired. So yeah, what Radek is showing, we can use it for local development, the plugin itself, the init script itself.
Yeah, so you effectively reference the init script locally as well then.
Yeah, if you want, because we aim to do it like that, you should ever need it. You know, because we are configuring the deployment part, not the local development part. So you can, it's perfectly fine to run your application just like any Spring application. Because like locally you don't need, for example, credentials to our Maven like service, like something like that.
Okay.
So for testing purposes you can do it, but I think nobody should like need it actually in local.
Interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, so basically you only need it to like troubleshoot when you, for example, it doesn't deploy your service or it has different content of the distribution zip. You can always just have this init script locally, play around, and why it didn't work?
Yeah, what I'm doing for such kind of testing, I actually use dev containers, and you can put key3s there, so you can verify many bits for deployment process even locally if needed. And well, sometimes it helps.
Yeah, we could use dev containers with passwords predefined. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, of course it failed for some reason. Yeah, but normally that's the interesting part here. So basically, it automatically detected that this module is a library. This module will contribute to the distribution zip. This will also, and it will also print the structure of the zip, which is the result of the build. And then it should publish it to our Artifactory. For some reason it failed, but I can show you the build which was okay. So let me switch repositories.
And could you check the dependencies? They were submitted.
Oh, right. So I need to also because the dependencies should be there. Okay, and they are submitted. So basically, our dependency submission thing worked, but for some reason it failed on publishing the artifacts. Yeah, but when I go here, in the actions, let's say here. Okay, so here it's all working. So basically, publishing everything to our Artifactory and then deploying this thing on our infrastructure. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, that's for the demo, I would say, and we can come back to the slides. Okay. we need to stop it from here. Okay. And then share this one, right?
Yeah. Sure. So thank you, Radek, for this demo. We will do some recap. I just wanted you all to know that we can't wait for declarative Gradle. You already showed the part, yeah.
No, I didn't show it.
Oh, sorry, we skipped the slides.
Yeah, so I wanted also to say that we're waiting for the declarative Gradle really much. We already tried it. It's like, I know it's in early stage of development, but we like used some nightly build and played around it. So I'm very excited about this project, and we hope that maybe when it emerges, the tools like static analysis tools like GitHub will have an easier life analyzing what's happening there, and also I believe the performance will be a lot better because you don't have to recompile the same Kotlin code every time, just parse the subset of Kotlin language and then make a decision based on that. So we really hope for that. How it could fit into our current configuration. So basically, there are in the declarative Gradle repo, there are like predefined software types. One of those is Kotlin JVM application. And we would love to use that because we don't want to distribute any custom software types to our users. But currently, I don't see any way to distinguish between those two cases when like between application which we want to publish and the application which is just to be run locally. So how it could look like, maybe it would be like something Kotlin JVM deployable application versus Kotlin JVM local application, which will not get the Maven publish and the publications out of the box. But that's only what I imagined it would look like. We could create those custom software types ourselves, but we're not sure if we like that because as I said, we don't want to distribute any custom stuff to the user. We want them to be able to use native API and be able to deploy. So maybe there will be some way to have this differentiation, but for now we're just exploring, and I hope I'm looking into the news from how this project will be developed. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Stay tuned for that. So we have early access release tentatively scheduled to this summer, and it will happen rather sooner than later. So any feedback is appreciated.
Yeah, that's really nice. So just to like a quick recap, we wanted like to share with you that we migrated most of the code base, and our organization dependencies reports have been getting better because like up until now we were missing some dependencies, but now the coverage is really good. And almost nobody experienced any issues during the migration. That was really helpful because like merging 1,500 repositories was not easy, but we found a small issue. But we, thanks to you guys, we merged it and we fixed it upstream. About the plans, what we can see it enables us. I'm sure we will enable Gradle wrapper validation in near future. We want to test out Gradle home cache cleanup because it should help some small problems on GitHub runners. Because we are hosting our own Gradle build cache server inside the company, but not all repositories benefit from that. Like the biggest application and some mobile stuff, but maybe we can set up it once and for all for everybody, so more people can utilize it. And for example, we have now easy way to introduce artifact signing. I know it's mainly used in public repositories and like open source stuff, but I think also that every company should like get attestation for the artifacts they are building. So it would be great if we have a signing plugin enabled and configured with proper keys. Of course, we are very close to replacing our manual reporting with GitHub Security APIs or our own in-house stuff. For example, using Stackshare or Fossa tooling someday. And it's not the end. We have a lot of challenges with those approach. So, for example, GitHub Dependabot security advisories sometimes cannot create automatic PR because they found a Spring that is transitive dependency, and Dependabot cannot find Spring entry in the Gradle file. So this is something maybe a problem, maybe not. It shows us that there is a problem, but it's copied over and over and over everywhere. So we hope maybe someday it will be fixed. For example, we are looking at Stackshare is working. We are also exploring Fossa tool. And for example, they have cool reporting and deduplicating the problem, so it would work. But somehow we still working how to support loading SBOMs directly from GitHub. We are trying to make it work also. And of course, there are a lot of questions about the security matter. For example, now how to store Maven credentials securely in the GitHub runners. We know that we can use GitHub secrets, but we are looking for something more, for something better. And behind the scenes, of course, we have two special mentions because this project wouldn't be possible without our Allegro deployment platform team that would discuss with us and help us make it happen. So thank you, Wojtek Szewczuk from Allegro, and of course, thanks to Das, because he was like a awesome maintainer. He always responded to our issues on GitHub and guided us through the process. So thank you, Das. It's a pleasure to work with you on open source Gradle Actions. So the last thing I wanted to say that our team, Radek, me, Alexander, and Michał, we are going to continue the fight for simplest builds possible, and we will be tackling you Gradle guys and asking some strange questions just to make the process as easy as it can get. And that's all. So thank you very much, and we are open for any questions you may have.
Cool. Thank you both. That was great. So yeah, please, folks, as indicated at the start and repeated by Oleg, please post questions you may have either on YouTube as comments, on LinkedIn as comments, and we will carry them over to the presenter here. Since there is nothing really, there was one question from Oleg while we were presenting. Your Allegro GitHub action, is that open source or is that a private one?
Yeah, actually, it's private one, but I think that there is I don't see any any problems open sourcing it, because it basically just wraps set of Gradle action. So if anybody would like to see or make it, I think we can make it open source in a day or two.
And so it's effectively a coordinator of multiple Gradle actions so that you have an easier way to define a workflow. And
Exactly.
community, you know who to reach out to if you're interested.
Yeah, sure.
It's one of the options. Another option might be even putting some bits to the upstream, because we have this Gradle/GitHub Actions collection of action steps, and maybe we could also integrate some bits there too.
Yeah, maybe. We really we're looking forward to that. So, for example, if we only could set dependency submission to be enabled for default branches, we wouldn't need most of the wrapping part, for example. So we're happy to discuss those options. So we will be happy to open source and discuss those.
And so one thing you mentioned that I found interesting, because dependency management has been kind of my area for many years. I think it's really great that we have that Gradle action right now, but folks need to realize that what GitHub does with Maven is also approximative, because a Maven POM file is not like a package lock or a Python report, right? It's also something that gets interpreted by a dependency resolution engine. And if you look just at the POM file, but the POM file has parents and things like that, you're potentially missing quite some dependencies, or even making reports on invalid versions. So I'm going to be not nice and say that don't expect declarative to fix that. Like we still have a very smart dependency resolution engine in Gradle, and declarative will help a number of things. But like figuring out what are the really resolved dependencies, that remains a challenge as long as you have like, I mean, unless of course we had something like a package lock file or anything.
And there are still transitive dependencies. We are not there. So
yeah, exactly. Yes. So that's definitely also a challenge.
Yeah, there are also some other dependencies. For example, if you use basically tool sources, platforms, etc., the scope keeps growing.
Yeah.
And at some point, with Gradle or with other tool, it definitely gets complicated.
Yeah. For example, you can have a plugin that dynamically declares something. So there is a lot of space in the things to hide and places to hide dependencies. So not only declared ones are important.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Hopefully, we don't have too many plugins that download dependencies on demand, because polyfill is kind of fun at the moment in the JavaScript community. And we definitely spent quite a lot of time in the Jenkins ecosystem fighting such plugins, because it was a kind of common workaround to download private payloads, etc., on demand in open source plugins. So we mostly cleaned it up, but I can imagine such things still happening.
And so we just got a comment from Paul, who's one of the leads working on declarative Gradle at Gradle itself, that says that, declarative would help tools like Dependabot create PRs to upgrade dependencies. And as we discussed, that's fully true for the first level, but for transitive, it still is, it still leaves open questions. But I mean, we do have ideas sometimes. We just need to figure out if they're sane and sound.
Yeah, what worth mentioning, we also have official partnership with GitHub on software supply chain, Dependabot included. So this is one of the questions we discuss, and hopefully we will have a few updates soon.
Yeah, can I have a question for you guys? What do you think about this approach with moving logic from like internal Gradle plugin to this init script, which is in central place? So what do you think about it?
I think it really depends on what kind of logic you're moving. Given that you seem to be focused mostly on the deployment and the things that's supposed to happen only from the CI environment, yes, why not? One thing I've learned through my Gradle experience is that one thing that confuses developers, and again, that's one of the objectives of declarative Gradle, is when you open a project, what kind of project am I looking at? Is this a library? Is this a deployable service? Is this a utility that helps me do something through my build, through my application? And so having that explicit in the build file helps. And so the fact that you kept like Java library, application plugin, and all of those being applied in the build script sounds perfectly fine to me, because that's one important element. And then if it's focused again, like I said, on deployment and things like that, it's an easy way. An alternate would be to use a plugin with a range as its version, but that has challenges in terms of reproducibility. Although again, because you inject a script that you can modify on demand, I'm pretty sure you've put yourself under heavy constraints in terms of, hey, we just updated the init script. Oh, we broke half of the builds. So like that must be a challenge. I think that's a challenge for you though. But from the developer's perspective, sounds really nice if I never see a problem.
We actually used, to introduce it gradually, we used custom GitHub properties for repositories. So we can switch, like we can deploy or just choose 5 or 10 repositories just to check the new init version.
Yeah, so basically you can opt into this new feature by just changing one property on GitHub without changing your build, basically.
Yeah. Do you also do some kind of integration testing for your GitHub action and for all these shared components?
Because we in our action we can create like a workflow that will actually use this action and give us some testing. Of course, local testing is a bit challenging, but on CI it works well.
Yeah, definitely. Personally, I had actually mixed feelings about these approaches, because my common approach is that if I have something, let's say a shared logic, I put it in a separate repository, set up a continuous delivery, release cycle for the documentation, keep it in the same repository. And for me, publishing it has never been a concern, because even without Maven credentials, so for example, in GitHub Actions, you can just use GitHub packages for such development tools. So if I had to stop basically ecosystem similar to what you did, I would have started from a separate repository, or probably proper convention plugin for Gradle that basically wraps more or less similar things, interacts with GitHub Action, ensures that you properly pass configuration, settings, flags. But yeah. Your approach one, you basically embed it right inside the setup-gradle part. Definitely has a lot of merits.
Yeah, one thing we've seen with talking to large Gradle users, and you mentioned them early on, right? Netflix. It's really interesting, because the way they do it is effectively like they launch PRs, automated PRs to the different projects, asking them to update their versions and everything, except that project owners don't have the ability to refuse those PRs. If CI passes, they get merged. And it's a very strong statement, of course, right? Because again, you own the responsibility of not breaking the builds, but it kind of resolves one of the problems we were discussing at the start, which is, hey folks, please remember, you should merge those PRs. Hey, 80% have been merged. We still have a few stragglers. Please work on that and merge them. And so it's another way of addressing the problem. In a way, it's that to say, hey, we now have a culture where a PR coming from the central developer experience team, if it doesn't break anything, just is merged, period. Like no questions asked, just merge it. We know what we're doing. We're here to help. But we've seen companies also where that's definitely not an option. And then those PRs always fall to the bottom of the priority queue. And so their lead time is like 3 to 6 months to get them merged. And then upgrades are a nightmare. And so it's challenging for sure.
You all need to check out our blog, Allegro Tech blog, because we are preparing a publication about exactly this issue you said. We are going to we're trying to improve the idea of automated pull requests that getting merged forcefully. But we are getting one level ahead. You will be able to read it on our blog.
Okay, nice, cool. Looking forward to it then.
Yeah, but this force merge, it's what we're considering, right?
Yeah. We called it actually we called it technical debt tracker. And if some PRs are red because they're resolving some technical debt, we are going to merge it. You have 5 days.
Yeah.
so we're trying to do it.
Yeah. It gets a little bit trickier when you have continuous delivery and continuous deployment.
Yes.
But I think 5 days lead is still okay.
Yeah. We can probably have multiple levels of criticality. Like 1 month or maybe 1 day.
And
there are different levels of when we have a PR which only adds a GitHub action, it really has no chance to break anything on production, right? So it's more safer to merge it rather than changing the actual code.
Yep.
So yeah, and I'm also looking forward to this publication because it's always a difficult discussion.
Nice. We hope in my dreams, I hope that the automated PR process will also be open sourced in the near future. I hope until our blog post will be open source.
Yeah, right. So if anyone has last minute questions, please put them in the chat. We will be slowly wrapping up. It's already a little beyond 1 hour. But one thing I wanted to say, thanks a lot to Radoslav and Bartosz for the presentation. It's really nice to see these use cases in the wild because 11,000 repositories, well, it's a really nice scale.
Thank you. It's a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
And of course, we're happy you choose Gradle, right?
Yeah. We're happy to.
And yeah, this feedback is really useful. GitHub Actions is one of the fastest growing platforms. No wonder why. Gradle is one of the popular tools there. So there are millions of repositories that use Gradle on GitHub. And basically all these practices, all minor improvements to actions, or maybe even new actions and pipelines, they can save a lot of time to people.
Yeah, you have big power to impact a lot of people.
Yeah, in both ways. But yeah, what I would really like to see is basically a continuation of this GitHub Actions effort, maybe deeper integration with GitHub organization management, because there are still some bits like, let's say, .github, like in Probot tools, where basically you can manage and store configs on the organization level. I think it would be quite beneficial for such configurations. So basically you can have a global org level definition for how you want to use Gradle. And one thing I noticed in your demo that you actually didn't use the Gradle build scan. I'm not sure whether it could have helped for that pipeline failure, but yeah, for me, it's one of the common examples. So such basic analytics, observability tools that could be enabled at scale and could support them. So actually having them managed on the organization level, I think that would be a good improvement.
Yeah. So I just realized that we actually have a question on LinkedIn that did not show up. So we have a question from, sorry if I mispronounce your name, Somak Dutta. And he's asking, when viewing the dependencies in GitHub Insights, how would you know which dependency configuration to consider while generating the dependency graph? And would this work for Android project as well? And where dependencies could be at the flavor variant build level? So I can try to answer those. My knowledge is not 100% up to date. So you may have to follow up asking that on the dependency action. But so which configuration to consider, that's your choice. The Gradle GitHub Action, dependency GitHub Action makes a number of default choices, but in the context of Android, you would have to choose whether you want your free debug dependencies in priority or whether you want the other ones. So that's mostly configurable. I don't know on the Allegro side if you've got like any specific comments on that.
Yeah, just like you said, we are using defaults. So provided for setup action, you can override them and choose the target you want.
Yeah. So that's effectively something that is configurable. Interestingly, when we developed the action, when Daz developed the action, because he was the one working on that, what we had were conversations because the GitHub Dependency Submission API is based on the JavaScript ecosystem. And so it's effectively production or development. These are the two scopes. And of course, on the Gradle side, we have way more scopes, including any number of scopes, depending on how your project is set up. You could have build-related things, you can have tooling-related things, and then you can have like a number of variations. So what we discussed and decided to do is in the end, do a general report for the whole project at the root level, like we don't specify where the dependencies appear in the graph, because it was easier. But yeah, that's already a simplification over the Gradle model. So when you see the alerts, you sometimes have to figure out a bit better where the dependency is effectively declared and used. So that remains a challenge, to be honest.
Yeah. Gradle, Google, GitHub's Insights sometimes can show like settings Gradle as a root like scope.
Yeah, because we kind of centralize everything from there, because like having the differences was really, really complicated. And one of the when we were testing that on Gradle's own build, one of the first version we had, we would identify the problem for every project where the dependency is seen. But you can imagine that the moment you have like 100 projects in your build, and you see one transitive dependency having a problem, you ended up with 100 alerts because it's present in all the projects. And all of these alerts have to be accepted or declined. You can do that by group, but you effectively have to comment 100 times the same thing. And so that's also one of the reasons we changed that approach to a single entry point. It reduces duplication at the risk of making you work a bit more to figure out where do you have to do that version update.
Yeah, and even with some errors, when we updated vulnerable stuff, it just went away next build. So
Yeah, that's
the duplication is like all right in the
Yeah.
most of the cases.
It gets a little bit tricky with demos, etc. Well, you have insane list of dependencies, but yeah,
If you have
normally,
insane list of dependencies, you have another problem.
well, modern frameworks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, why I mentioned demos specifically, because in demos sometimes, so what happens when you build an open source project, normally you have examples folder. It's rare that you update this folder all the time. Sometimes quite opposite, you need all the versions, etc. So finally you end up with examples folder that includes multiple versions of the same framework, a lot of other dependencies, sometimes maybe even dependencies on different, let's say, Gradle versions, etc. And basically it leads to explosion of these dependencies. And since we cannot really distinguish production code and non-production code, actually we can do it with GitHub Dependency Submission Action, because you can scope the repositories you include for the submission. But yeah, for, let's say, quite straightforward builds, yeah, it's going to be a problem. Okay, thanks Louis for checking LinkedIn, because indeed the propagation didn't work to the chat. I don't know why. So as far as I can tell, there are no other pending questions. One thing to mention that we have a GitHub integrations channel on the Gradle community Slack. So basically, if you want to ask any question or share feedback, experiences, join us on this channel. It's a nice discussion. Any feedback and welcome. And yeah, all the actions are open source. Well, maybe Allegro action will be also open source soon as a high-level one. And contributions are welcome. So, any closing words?
We really recommend the Slack channel. We met there actually. So
Excellent.
Nice. Okay, so thanks everyone.
Yep, thank you all.
And hopefully the next edition for this end user stories will be in August. So there is a kind of open call for papers, also known as please DM me if you want to present something. And yeah, definitely we want to have more such informal discussions and have basically more cross-pollination for ideas, and with new projects like Declarative Gradle, GitHub Actions going live, I think there will be a lot of opportunities to share the experiences. Okay. So thanks everyone, and yeah, see you online.
nice. See you. Bye.
Okay. Bye. I will stop this.